find this wicked witch, steal her wand, I'll get that big pile of gold, and you can have a nice pile of bananas, all right?
Bananas. Oh, I see. Because I'm a monkey, I must love bananas, right? That is a vicious stereotype.
You like bananas?
Of course I love bananas. I'm a monkey. Don't be ridiculous. I just don't like you saying it.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Cain Stevens Paranormal Super Show. This is the best of series going on here until we kick off the new season. And, man, it just feels great to be back and doing our thing. I've got one of my favorite guests, well, probably my actual favorite guest of all the people that I've interviewed coming up here, and a fan favorite by everybody. He's the man, the myth, the legend, Ed the Pagan, everybody. So we're just going to blast off into this thing, and I hope you enjoy the show. Stick around for more to come. We'll be on Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, YouTube, really anywhere where you can stream podcasting. So listen for us on there, and all right, enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Cain Stevens Paranormal Super Show, and I am your host once again, Cain Stevens. I've got a special guest today, someone I'm excited to talk to, and a world that I'm extremely interested in, and I hope you all are too. I've got Ed the Pagan here. Hello, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing terrific.
And Ed is, I don't even know what to call you. What would you say you are in the witch world?
A witchpreneur. So I am currently the CIO, which means Chief Information Officer of the Karelian Education Ministries. I'm an elder of the Karelian Natives tradition. So
Okay.
for most people, I'm third degree. So,
Yeah.
People will say I'm a high priest. So I'm a high priest of a large organization.
And do you mind me asking, Ed, how did you get into this? How did you get into, witchcraft and paganism and all of that? Did it start at a young age?
No, for me it did. I did at a really young age. And the first where I really jumped in, where I become known as a pagan, would be in my late teens, early 20s, when I started exploring Chicago. I became a priest at 28 years old. Been 30 years a priest. Oh my God!
Wow.
Next year is my 30th year. That sort of thing. But the real story for me begins with my pastor, because I was raised in a very strict Dominionist type of Baptist church by Reverend Ray Bakke. He became known as a great evangelist, but I was just part of his first kind of church. And every Halloween he would do the witches are taking over the world speech. It was my favorite sermon of all of them.
Right.
And it was the idea that the Ouija board was going to be sold as games, and they were going to sell as spells, and they were going to do all of these amazing things, right? And the way they talked about them, and I eventually would go out and absorb that, and eventually I would go out looking for witches as God's spy of witches. Remember, that was kind of brainwashed as a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to be God's spy, and I found real witches, and they really changed the way I looked at it. And before I knew it, I belonged in that community. And my allegiance went from this sort of weird apocalyptic Christianity, believing in the Jupiter effect, to saying, no, I'm a pagan. I'm a Gaius, most particularly a Gaius. I believe that Mother Earth is a very divine entity. And once that changed in my heart, I didn't want the world to end.
Well, I find that
Pagan all the way.
I find that extremely interesting, Ed, because I grew up around kind of the Southern Baptist culture, and it terrified me away from religion for many years. The fire and brimstone point at a kid and tell them they're going to hell all the time. Just short of wearing a snake on their head and letting them bite them and all that stuff. It was pretty close to that in some of the churches. And, I may have come back to religion, for my own, personal reasons or whatever, but I don't by any means look down upon or judge any other religion, because I find it interesting. I think you can find something great in all religions. And so that's kind of my take on it. But as you got into it more, I don't know if you're allowed to say like how you become a priest and all this, but how do you continue as a witch, so to speak? So
most modern witchcraft, right, what we would call modern witchcraft, essentially comes out of Gardnerianism, and before that there's always been a certain amount of witchcraft in our society. We
Right.
called it various things, the cunning arts and things of that nature. So you have really the folk traditions. And the way you do that is you learn the folk traditions. You just kind of learn them. And you get an apprentice with a folk witch. Byron Ballard is a good example. Selena Fox is a good example. There's a lot of them out there. And then you kind of get an apprenticeship and you kind of just learn how to do it by doing.
Right.
There's now a very formalized witch school, which I founded, has more of the traditional, like, you go to school. There's
Right.
a witch school. And you take it just like that, first degree, second degree, third degree, and that's how you become clergy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between becoming practiced as a witch and becoming clergy. Clergy, you learn all the witch stuff and Wicca stuff, but you're really learning how to work in the sort of legalistic world that we live in, the sort of the society of being able to do things, being a legal clergy, marrying and bearing and standing up for rights. But a witch doesn't require any of that. There is no such thing. A witch is simply you practice your craft and you get better out of it. It's like being a piano player.
Right. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that people who practice witchcraft are satanic and only worship the devil and all of that. And even if you did, I mean, that's by all means you're right, but I don't believe that's true. But could you maybe school us up, so to speak, on exactly what you guys do practice in your, well, I mean, I believe it's a religion, so to speak, and a lifestyle. Could you let us know kind of if somebody was thinking about practicing witchcraft or getting into it, what exactly that lifestyle would be like?
Sure. So let me first offer an insight into the word witch.
Mm-hmm.
It became used by the Catholic Church during the Inquisition to be branding people, where it was thousands of words with different. So before the Inquisition, there were dozens of words for different types of aspects. Healing women, cunning people, shamans. I mean, there were hundreds of different forms and names for what was basically a person who learned how the world works, nature works, and kind of help people be healthy.
Right.
Now, imagine, and that sort of thing. And so the Inquisition needed to brand them with a single word. We always now know, giving everybody a single name, and they called it witches. Now, witches have a lot of different definitions and a lot of things. So, and they were able to say, anyone who's the outsider, anyone who does not accept our system of medicine, our system of thinking, our system of practice, paying our taxes, our books, and things of that nature, can be labeled for their knowledge as the witch.
Right.
And the witch becomes everybody's demon.
Now,
Doesn't matter.
Is that a negative term to you guys? I mean, I do apologize if there are people who are practicing witchcraft and I'm using the word witch and it might bother them.
Oh, no. We've spent the last 80, 90 years recovering it
Okay.
as a system of power. I'm a witch. I
Yeah.
love using that word. But yeah, we spent a great deal of time recovering that.
Okay.
So to be a witch, you have to be willing to accept and believe that your will can change your world.
Okay.
And that there are ways of changing it. Anything from simple incantations. I love incantations. You know, I love making up little things like I will succeed.
Right.
You know, today's a great day. These are little incantations, very complicated ones. I go over my plans, things of that nature, and that sort of things. But I love incantations. There's things that people say, you know, by this hour of power, I do as I will. You know, so I love that simple magic. That's as simple as it gets. Blowing out a birthday candle, you know, making a wish.
Yeah.
On 12/21, a lot of people have made wishes. There is this idea of astrological entities. And last December, on the 21st, so we actually had one of those moments where people made wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And that brought a lot of people in. Some people have said, we're looking for our superpowers. And some people have emerged kind of with that idea of it.
Right.
So it's about the idea of how much you're willing to accept. And then for me, the paradigm is that everything's magical.
Right.
Really changes the way that I see things. And I'm as much a Rise of the Techno Mage, I'm a techno person, and I see magic in the internet. So really, to be a witch, you have to accept that you can do things and that you can do things with your will. And we call that magic.
And you seem very, you just talking to you, Ed, you seem very positive, like the power of positivity is I can't say that for sure because I don't know you in your regular life, but just talking to you, do you will a lot of good intention to everybody all the time? Is that something that you're, a part of, or is there a dark side to witchcraft? And I'm not attacking you. I'm saying, is there a dark side that people also practice?
So witchcraft in and of itself is neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Every plant that can heal can poison.
Okay.
There's hexes, there's justice. Believe me, there's a whole series of other emotions. I worry that there is a Disneyfication of the Disneyfying of witches.
Right. Yeah.
There's a reason why they're separate. Nobody likes to speak. The speaking to truth is hard.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like the witches have always been the mercenary. No one goes to a witch for advice first, but a lot of people go to a witch for advice last.
Right.
So there is this aspect of the mercenary, like this is what you do at the end of last resort.
Well, it's kind of like when somebody's having like let's say cancer, for example, and nothing's working, and they go to a quote unquote witch doctor. That term, to do some sort of alternative healing. Are there? Is that the shamanism and stuff that you're referring to?
Sure. There's healing, there's shamanism, there's all sorts of things. And more of this is getting incorporated. The thing is, as we expand into modern medicine, the 70s shamans, the 70s gurus, everybody was saying they were into this, is you need to get to a macrobiotic diet, as we've seen in other countries for a long period of time.
Right.
Today, that's prescribed for every cancer patient.
Yeah.
They tell them right away, go to this diet.
Definitely.
And so, but that's not the thing. I'll tell you the biggest one in my lifetime that changed. I'll give you an example of what it was exotic, even cursed on and broken, and people pissed on it and everything else. And today, it gets full medical, high-end payments from the insurance companies. Acupuncture.
Okay.
When I was a kid, acupuncture was not accepted. It was weird. It was evil. They were closing down acupuncture shops that were forming. They had to have certain licenses. Today, acupuncture is seen as a fine medication. It's actually approved of, paid for by insurance companies. Everybody uses it. And nobody thinks twice of it had been just 35 years ago, really only a metaphysical kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, for sure.
But
you even see major athletes doing it. You see, all the different, cup acupuncture and stuff like that. You see all the cup marks and all that different things. It's definitely a mainstream thing.
And just 35 years ago, it was solely an occult thing.
Yeah.
It was a weird Oriental medicine thing.
Which brings you to the idea, what is the occult? Why do we assume that something is so macabre or occult or different just because we don't understand it? I mean, that's just life in general, isn't it? Is people who don't understand something just label it as wrong or bad, including, witchcraft. Obviously, there's been, throughout time, there's been issues with that.
Well, we have a mechanism called the amygdala, which is a fear-based organism. Mm-hmm. It's a reptilian brain, and we have to wrap everything. The way the brain works, it wraps everything through there.
Right.
And its job is to watch for patterns that are wrong or dangerous.
Yep.
And for millions and millions of years, and including right up until modern time, your ancestors really relied on this, is to see that lion or that wolf or that bear or that animal coming at you or that other human coming at you. Mm-hmm. We had this sort of awareness that we had to have. And the way it works is that it would frighten you. You would get frightened, fight and fight most of it. And you knew your 150 neighbors, and that's all you really cared about.
Right.
And as we became more and more urban, we've expanded our circuit, but we still have this sort of fear base in us.
Absolutely.
That tells us, and we've had propagandists who learned to mitigate what was a proper feeling of, oh yeah, that cliff is really too tight and it's crumbly. I should probably stand back from it, to exploiting it into like, oh, let's send you off the cliff on a movie.
Right.
And that excites you and it gets your brain working. So our civilization, our current civilization, is a chemical button-pushing society that tries to get you to take all this sort of fear and other emotions and react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, I wanted to get into one of the main reasons I had you on was because I want people to learn more about witchcraft, and I found it wonderful that you were even interested in coming on the show and being so gracious to answer my questions. So I had a girl get a hold of me via email on my The Curse of Arnold Heights, which is in Lincoln, Nebraska, and she told me about a duplex that she lived in. I had seen that she answered something on I believe it's ghostsofamerica.com, where they have like people reporting all the time their true ghost experiences, at least true to them. And she had answered back to them, and she said, I would, to the person who had posted before, and I won't read that now, but I'll just read what she said. I'd like to connect with you. I believe the house you are describing is my childhood home, as we went through the same thing. If so, the best thing for you to do is leave this home. That's her advice to these people, okay? So that's what prompted me to email her and see if I could help. Because what I want to do is I want to help people in this area, because I grew up out there. I lived out there in also a haunted home. And it seems like the entire neighborhood has nothing but activity everywhere. Negative, whatever. And so, when she got back to me, she asked me if there were a lot of reports going on out there, and I had described to her what was kind of going on, and she said what she thought in her house in particular that was happening was spawned solely by what her mom did. And what her mom had been doing is practicing witchcraft, but she was practicing, maybe we can get into it a little more, a certain type of witchcraft. And I don't know, I mean, please, you and I have kind of read over, one thing she says that she, in this house, after her mom performed these, let me bring it up here. These acts, she said she was seeing demons, having sleep paralysis. A picture of a grim face or figure was always floating over her sister's bed. She said it was just crazy living there. She says that she's so terrified of this place that she doesn't even want to go back on the street that the house is. She doesn't want to be near it. What she said was that in her childhood, her mom was performing some sort of ritual where she I don't know, cut everybody's hands or wrists or something, and did some bloodletting of some sort, and after that, it's like all so to speak, all hell broke loose. So can you tell me what that could have been? What your impression of what she did?
So I looked at it fairly strongly, some of the aspects of it. Let's go ahead and deal with the mom first.
Yeah.
The mom was obviously in some sort of desperation.
Right.
To take that type of magic, she was willing to sacrifice everything. When you start working in dark arts, you're sacrificing your life energy.
Okay.
It's kind of like suicide in increments.
Yeah.
You're willing to deteriorate your mind, anything to get you back on track where you feel you need to be. And everybody has this feeling of where they need to be. And you'd be surprised at how much you're willing to sacrifice to that. Well, the question comes down to someday, energies out there in the world, the way that you think, the way that you can do it, that type of witchcraft can lead you down dark alleys. It always has. History has them. I do not deny it. It's one of the things that makes a witch effective. Being a mercenary, you want them to be able to think of the darkest of thoughts.
Right.
A witch that can say good isn't because they never think dark thoughts, but they're able to think the darkest thoughts and come away with an ethical response. So she decided that ethical response wasn't there anymore.
So that's what you believe brought her to arrive on the idea to do whatever she did.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
She felt desperate.
Now she mentioned putting the blood on a pigskin paper. Does that sound like something that
it's called parchment.
Parchment. Okay. Yeah,
it's
she
more
said
likely,
pigskin paper. I wasn't sure.
It's more likely, but it's more likely lamb.
Yeah.
Okay. It's an animal skin. It could be pigskin, which would be interesting, but it's almost too greasy to make a good parchment. Lamb does, cows do, and there's certain paper products that are called parchment now. But old parchment was called vellum.
Okay.
And and you could used to buy that, be able to buy that in the store to do a thing. So I think the grandmother summoned up a poltergeist or a emotional creation, an emotional creation of that. There's a thing called an egregor, which is a synthetic being. There's poltergeist, right? And those are all fear reflective. It feeds on fear. And once that got started, they just start feeding on each other's fears.
Right. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're dead on that, Ed. I mean, it sounds like they're terrified of the place.
Right. And that's more of a natural spirit or a spirit of the dead that lives in this kind of our space versus the demonic. Okay. If there was demonic, there would have been more scratches. There would have been more possessive elements.
Because she said her mom was doing what she describes as a, well, she tried to describe to them when they asked what they were doing as a seance. She was doing a seance.
Seances, yeah, we do seances all the time.
Yeah.
Seances are fun. I mean, people buy seances. But she was creating and bringing in this energy of the dead, the energy of revenge, the energy of her anger. So that was a really powerful energy, anger. And the energy could have been there in another form, could have been there are other entities there, and they worked together, but she was fueling it by her anger and her fear.
Okay.
So this was a reflection on the mother the whole time it was there. The mother probably went through hell. She was probably being tortured by her own mind. Right. And the children followed into that black hole.
Well, I want to describe to you what she says that they saw, the demon-like figure. Maybe you know more about this. She said, let's see. She said the demon looked like a spiky head, red-eyed, and it had a spiky head with red eyes, bright red eyes, and its body was like static on TV. Does that sound like something that you've ever heard of, or? Oh,
sure. So they can take any form, and that's the pinhead. That's derived from the pin. You see Cerebites on television, the pinhead.
Yeah.
So that frightened her. She probably had seen that images. It's very rare that an entity or a demon, right, will come out and take something that's not already in your head.
Yeah.
And synthesize it, because nothing else is scarier than what's inside your head.
Yeah, for sure.
There are cases of real possessions and real infractions and ways it moves in. There's 7 different ways the demons move into the world. And this is one that could have, but because it didn't have the sort of the sulfur, some of the other stuff of it, this is another, I really think of it's more of a malevolent being, a poltergeist. She attracted one of these old spirits that love to cause chaos, loves to feed on the anger, loves to feed on the energy, loves to bring out these sort of frightening images. I'm not saying this is a no-joke entity to play with.
Right.
But it doesn't care if you're good or bad. It doesn't care. It's amoral.
Well,
this is a very amoral.
Do you think, Ed, that the people who live there currently, do you think they probably, because somebody had messaged that site and where it's complaint, I don't necessarily know for sure that that's the one they're talking about, but can it affect that house forever? If they,
yes.
And can it affect the houses around it?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer. The entity, if it keeps getting fed and keeps going on there, and it goes dormant. This is how you hear about haunted woods. This is how you get older haunted houses. Eventually, everybody moves away from it.
Right.
Something happens. A house burns down. You see these devastated neighborhoods that are haunted.
Right.
It'll cause an energy. This is the energy that pushes people out of perfectly good neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And historically, people have left whole towns, and they'll go, oh, it's because of water, things like that. But sometimes it's just that it gets so infected with the supernatural energy that nobody can tolerate it. It's and to explain it to people in the modern terms, oh, that's silly. It's really the observer theory that we have now in quantum reality. You're seeing it over and over again that we see particles and waves and other things and record them. But if we're not looking at them, we don't see them.
Right.
Once these entities get into your head, into everybody's heads, it's there. It's hard to get them back out in that sort of quantum reality, and it keeps getting fed at some other level.
And
we're finding out there are different levels.
No, please continue.
No.
Can they touch you? Can they appear in all different forms? There's a lot of people reporting like cryptid-like figures. A black cat that morphs into something else, a large shadow, maybe 10 to 12 feet high that comes down to like a simian-looking being. I mean, there's so many reports. It's like the entire neighborhood is haunted.
So 2020 has shown us something really important. And that is, first of all, before 2020, a lot of this was conspiracy. People have been starting to look more of it. It was easy to call it conspiracy. But in 2020, let's be honest, the United States government has said, yes, here's some pictures of alien space, of unknown non-Earth spacecraft.
Right.
Here we go. We were conducting experiments.
Yeah.
On psychic people. Here's more experiments on, travel. I mean, and this isn't hearsay. This is classified government contracts being declassified this year. We've got those.
Right.
Not in all the classified stuff. I hate working with what I can't prove. But right now you can go on the internet, look it all up. And the government of the United States had given out a bunch of records that show this sort of metaphysical world that we live in.
Right.
And I think we're heading towards it. I think there's been a moment we're heading towards it. COVID was very quiet. The world quieted. Actually, there is actually thing, the Earth's noise content cut by 50% over the summer.
That's
so
interesting.
And so that actually, when you hear the world, one of the things is the quieter the world gets, the more we hear the spirit world. And I've been seeing all sorts of reports about it. So the problem is what do we want to observe? Do we really want to see these entities? And this is a central battle that you see in the monotheistic religions. They don't want you seeing it. They don't want you even having a word for it.
Right.
So instead of having 100 words for witches, 100 words for magic users, they talked about their specialty, which made them an industry, which made them useful, which made them practical. They were able to reduce it down to 1600, 1700 to the cursed witch.
Yeah, exactly.
And took away all their diversity.
Right.
Because they didn't want you to think of it. If we can think about these entities, these spirits, we can find them. They exist. They're there. And we only see 2% of all the energy of the world in our eyes. What's the other 98% willing to show us?
That's wild. Yeah. So you're saying that things quieted down, but now the floodgates are kind of open for all this stuff, you believe?
I do. So, so Halloween of last year, we had a full moon Halloween on, and it was a blue moon. So it was the second full moon of the month. So we had this very powerful traditional, if you believe in traditional sort of witchcraft, and especially Hollywood themed, perfect weather, perfect everything for Halloween rituals. And a lot of people worked to try to draw the dead into the world. And the year before, they also had one in Salem. I led one called the Great Oracle, where we wanted to find ways to bring more prophecies in the world, more seances. Last year, in COVID 2020 year, we've held more seances probably over the internet than we ever did live.
Yeah.
And then you had the 12/21/2020, which just recently happened, it's a wish day. Everybody should be making their wishes, but it's also believed the Age of Aquarius comes in.
I've seen that. What does that mean exactly? So if the Age of Aquarius does...
it means we're supposed to be more spiritually in tune. It means we're waking up to our psychic abilities.
Okay.
We should be seeing more. More people should be able to see this stuff. If you believe in it, more people will be seeing ghosts. More people will be seeing seances. Haunted neighborhoods will energize. We will be seeing more and more of this interaction, especially with the amount of negativity we're also feeding into the back end.
Okay.
Because we have tremendous grief. We have tremendous pain. We have tremendous lost energy. And that always feeds these type of phenomena as well. So you have both positive and tremendous grief.
Right.
Tremendous pain. And a lot of these negative energies can awaken these sort of old pains, these entities that do feed on that energy. And they exist. And people don't want to accept that. But they're less perfect. So you might see it in the sense of what they look like. They're reflective of their society. We have UFOs today, aliens, cryptids. 100 years ago, the Victorians were seeing fairies everywhere.
Right.
The entities can reflect, because they live in a different state than we do, they can reflect to us differently. And that's the thing. Shadow, the biggest one I'm thinking 2021, though, there is one force, and one person reported to me about the idea that a shadow king is crossed. And that the shadow people are trying to show up more because they found out they can live in the cities.
Right. Well, that's what most people are reporting in this neighborhood, and it's been since, the people who are talking to me are, they've had things happen since like the 90s, or even before that. But is that the shadow people are appearing to them in different ways? Even in my personal home where we had a haunting, my kids saw certain shadows. We saw shadows, full body apparition shadows. Ones that you could see on the other end of the hall. And you'd swear somebody's down at that end, but it's a darkness that blocks out the darkness. You can see it moving from one side to another.
Right. And we've got terms for that now. We actually have different darknesses of black that we can actually describe it in. But yeah, these are quantum entities. We don't know exactly. I've heard a lot of different things about them. I'm going to pay more attention to them this year.
Yeah.
And looking for them, but it's not something I've dealt with a lot of. but I am getting people in my systems, which is a global system. I mean, Witch School, to give you an idea of Witch School is, we're like in 100 countries. We have students in 30 different countries now. Last 25 years, isn't that amazing?
That is
the internet's an amazing place. But I'm getting more and more of these reports of shadow people, more UFOs, and communication with the dead. The dead seem to be, not instead of a zombie apocalypse, but people are starting to report a ghost apocalypse, or kind of a ghost movement in 2021. And there's a number of astrological pieces. It's one of those things. The reason why they create this idea of the ages is that we have this sort of astrological clock that every once in a while clumps together, and humans create significance into that.
Now, is that something that someone in witchcraft would want to do, is conjure something for whatever purpose? And are they trying to conjure the dead, or are they trying to conjure, a being from another, so we'll just say another dimension that we don't understand or that we can't fathom?
This is where magic widens. A witch may not want to do any of that, but if they practice sorcery, they want to call up other entities from other realms. If they're seance, they want to be able to communicate, not necessarily conjure, but make a connection with the dead.
Right.
If you're a magician, you may want to summon daemons or egregores like genies or other entities to serve you. So the answer is all of those, depending on your intent. And that's really a very small set of practitioners.
Yeah.
Right. I'm one of those. I do love to play with it. And there's another group that creates something called egregores, which are entities, artificial entities that are made of thought stuff in the realm, and that we try to get them to act. I have one called the Oracle. My favorite one I've had for all my life is Fetch. People are amazed at Fetch. Fetch was the first entity I ever created. And what it was, I was tired of losing my keys. I started to get tired of losing things. So I conjured up and did my first egregore spell, and I said, what do we want to do? I said, I wanted to find things that I don't know where they're at. And if I lose something, it says, Fetch, where is it? And voila, I can find it very quickly. Usually the next spot I look in. And I've had this little force all my life. It's an entity that just likes to fetch things for me.
Wow.
I really do believe it exists.
Very useful.
Absolutely. So that would be an egregore, an artificial or an entity that I brought forth to do a job, and it's done it all my life. And people have seen me react, and other people got their fetches and things of that nature. Now, can I prove to you it exists? No. Can I tell you it's just a memory trick that, hey, Fetch, where is it? My mind goes through a process and finds the item. Is it other things?
Right.
You can make it out to whatever it is, but it's very effective for me. And so that's what magic is.
Now, do you conjure or do you speak to the dead at all for whatever reasons? Is that something that you yourself are interested in?
No, I throw in the world, some of the world's largest best seance people into the world. I send into that hole for me.
Yeah.
I'm not completely comfortable with it.
Okay.
I'm not. I have my things on it. But Lord Don Lewis, a bunch of them. Sarah Wilde, which I know from Salem. She's a 13th generation from the original Sandra Wilds. She's a great seance people. So I work with them and get them seances when people want that. So I'm a guy who makes connections from the outside world to the inside world of the witches. I help you find what you need. I don't necessarily do a lot of this, and I'm not the best, but I find the best teachers for any student that wants to come or student wants to learn something. I can connect them to the person that they want within the community.
Well, Ed, tell me more about the witch school that you're a part of, or that you found. You are the founder of, correct? A witch school?
Yep, me. There were three of us.
Okay.
I was the marketing, and I was the guy who did construction and raised the funds. We had Lord Don Lewis, who was the teacher and still is today, chancellor of the Correllian tradition. He still runs it all. And a friend by the name of Lisa Tuitt, software programmer, female, and nobody really believes that she could do anything. She built us a kick-out site on a 486 Intel computer in a kitchen
Wow.
on a phone modem.
Yeah.
And we started teaching classes online, and we've been doing that ever since. And we teach people how to get information about being witches, and if they want to skill, and we build a community around it, and we have this huge community. And if you want to become a clergy member, we have 3 degrees of clergy standards. We have like 175 classes. We can teach you how to be clergy and a witch and a Wiccan. And Wiccan, not all witches are Wiccan, but all Wiccans are witches.
Okay.
There are Christian witches. There are satanic witches. I won't deny that there are. So witchcraft as a craft that you can add anything to it.
Yeah.
So imagine witchcraft as a scrapbook of effective spells. How you build your scrapbook, how you build your story in that witchcraft world is yours.
Right.
And so that sort of thing. So a Wiccan believes in the god and goddess. And so we teach that. And so you can go on there. It's free of charge. 35 classes we teach for free of charge. And so people can learn how to do this. And then we have, a subscription site. We've been around for 20 years now. This is going to be our 20th anniversary this year. So it's been amazing. And we've trained about 4,000 clergy members worldwide, at least. We have over 300,000 students.
And what site is that again for people who are interested in looking it up?
Witch School, witchschool.com.
Witchschool.com. That's perfect.
Yeah, and we got that very early on. It shows you how old it is because we were lucky to get some great names.
Right, there's 100 people out there right now trying to start a witch school, right? And they're, and they're typing in, I want to punch in witchschool.com, and bam, they can't. You guys got it. Yeah. You guys are the originals. And
we were there in 2001. We were the very first witch school of our kind.
Yeah.
I came to it by magic, of course. So what happened to me is that, basically I was doing the daily spell, trying to figure out answers. And, I was at the Parliament of World Religions, trying to figure out how to, got dissed there about numbers. And I casted an orange candle, for knowledge. I wanted it. Next morning I went out and saw a big orange sign on the side of a bus. Phoenix University. Learn online. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the answer. And boom, made that connection. And I built Witch School from that moment on.
Man, that's amazing. Yeah.
And Phoenix University today is a big thing, but back then people were laughing at it.
Right.
And so that kind of gave me the mental play put together. So witchcraft can give you the portents, the signs, and everything else, but you actually also have to execute. And that's the thing most people get. I did a spell. Great. It gave you all the reasons. You got the one that always bothers me, if I can, is love spell. First of all, don't start a relationship with a kidnapping. But you do it. You cast it. And you said, I want to be able to say what I mean to this woman. And I've seen guys do this, and they get it. And they cast the spell, and they got confidence to bring him out, and they bring him to the bar. And they get the intimate moment to talk to him. Everything is right. Spirit's there, right?
Right.
And they go like this, and they go like they've been talking for a little while, and the moment goes, they just say, I really like you. They back out and go, wow, what do you think of the Green Bay game? Or something else. And the magic brought them the ability to do so. And if she would have said, I really love you, I really like you, your soul moves me, they chicken out.
Yeah.
The witchcraft is, once you cast that spell, you have to execute when the moment comes. And that's where a lot of people's spells fail, because the situation's right there. I want to stand up my bullies, and they work with you to stand up to your bullies and give you the perfect moment to embarrass your bullies, but because you don't want to know how people think about you differently, you back out. You got in front of teachers, you've proved your point, you got them dead to rights. All you have to do is repudiate them, and you get scared.
So you got to follow through.
That's what makes a witch so much more powerful, because once they start their spell, they know they have to carry it through.
Is it a stronger will, would you say, the people who do actually follow through? Maybe they have a stronger will or a better mind for it? Was that something you would say?
That's what we teach. That's exactly what it teaches.
Okay.
Every step, every exercise, yeah. The stronger your will, the more the world acts to you.
Absolutely.
And that's what magic's all about.
So do you, when you watch, you watch different movies and different things, and you see the interpretation of, so let's say, I'm sure everybody's made this comparison to you, like Harry Potter, for example, and different things, or like some of the evil witch movies. Do you laugh to yourself, or how do you approach watching movies like those?
The same way I choose any movies. I'm very picky on my movies. I want a real story. I want into it. I loved Harry Potter, and our school kind of grew alongside. Witch School kind of grew alongside Harry Potter.
Yeah,
and a lot of the messages of Harry Potter were really cool. A lot of them jived with us, but it's all Hollywood. Let's be face. If everybody got mad at how bad Hollywood butchered what you feel is your sacred cow image, you're going to be crying all day long.
Yeah.
Even as a fan, they're bringing out Dune, and I cringe because I am a huge lover of Dune, and I feel like they haven't done a really good job with the movie. So I'm frightened they're going to bring out another Dune movie.
Right.
Should they not do it? Of course they should. Just because it doesn't fit my image. I, as a kid, loved Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I love the show. I thought it gave a great message about witches. It was a lot of Generation Xers like, oh, witches are good.
Absolutely.
And then they brought her out, and then they brought out on Netflix for the next generation, the Z, the Z generation, Sabrina the Satanic Witch.
Right.
Which was another version, and it's perfectly legitimate, and it shifts that image a little bit.
I liked it. I feel like Harry Potter, for example. I feel like that's one of the best stories told. I mean, they did it so well. I just think there's a lot of great stories, but in movie form, I felt like they did a wonderful job on that. I like the new Sabrina too. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, my wife and I, we dug it. We watched it pretty religiously.
Right. So for me, the entire life of it started with Samantha, Bell Book and Candle, then Bewitched.
Mm-hmm.
So Bewitched is the most amazing witch story of all. If you ever want to talk about the transformation of a witch goes through, I tell them, watch the first and last episodes of Bewitched and see the difference. In the beginning, she had lost her name. She became a married woman. She lost the desire to use her magic. She wasn't allowed to use her magic because her husband told her not to, right?
Right.
And her relatives kept coming in trying to tell him that it wasn't good enough. He really loved her, but there was a lot of control in their patriarchy, and it was in black and white.
Yeah.
How did the series end? Full spectrum color. She's queen of the witches, and she's in a loving partnership with her husband, and she's telling her family to fuck off.
Yeah. Which doesn't get any better, right? I mean, she really transformed as a person and as a witch.
And so did women with her throughout that whole period of time.
Yeah.
So from the very meek, I want to conform to the world and hide my magic, and that was the gag.
Right.
That's you, a superhero, in a mundane world, to the end of it, her reclaiming all the power of that magic, of her heritage, her femininity.
Right.
No better story, in my opinion, shows that power of what witchcraft does.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a comedy and everything else, but there's a very profound moment. Black and white, housewife, to full color queen.
Yeah, that's amazing. I never thought of it that way. I did watch Bewitched. I'm a little younger. I'm 38, but I did watch Bewitched as a kid, and I probably never made it all the way through. But that would interest me to go back and just watch it for the fun, especially the first and last episode.
And then, and from that point on, you saw the media back off the witch somewhat.
Yeah, for sure.
They started transfer, and then you saw that transformation. With that was the Hollywood transformation of the witch. Sometimes good, sometimes horrific. I love a good horrific witch.
Right.
I know a few that are. I know one witch that someday should be actually done a movie about. They don't kill people, but man, they rip them apart so badly. I know witches who use verbal battles to rip people apart.
Right.
So don't get it wrong. We're not all witches. Witches are not. Good witches are not safe because they're harmless. They're good witches because they can harm you and choose not to.
Well, Ed, I know you have you only have so much time. We're starting to run out of time. So, in closing, is there anything that you would like to, anything else you'd like to plug, or anything else that's coming up? I know that I've given you the time frame when this is probably coming out, but given that information, is there anything coming out in your life that you'd like to talk about here shortly?
Sure. The biggest thing that's going to be is happening is pagan.world.
Okay.
There's some other names, pagan.world, where we're recreating and creating a directory to all the resources inside the pagan world.
Oh, wow.
And we're hoping to create that, and we're going to be highlighting shows and things like that, and we're going to be able to help you find shows like this and kind of find the pagan world. The world has changed. The internet's changed, so we're going to create a kind of a nexus where people can find this material and connect to it. I think people are really on that. So I think that's important. And I think the other thing is people really want, I think you covering it is going to be very interesting. If you're having these experiences, reach out to people, more people, let people know that you're having these experiences. There's now more paranormal radio. They have this great show. Cain's got right here. He'd love to hear from you. No
Absolutely.
doubt.
Thank you.
And how do they hear from you?
How they hear from me, if you're listening, is I'm on. So I don't do video per se, but I do pictures that coincide with what we're doing, and I do video on YouTube for every episode, and then I'm also on Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts as well. And so you can find me on there, all my episodes, and you can listen to this one if you're listening to podcasts. And if you like Amazon devices, you can always just say, Alexa, basically just say, Alexa, play Cain Stevens Paranormal Podcast, and it'll come up. And so that's kind of a fun deal. And, I'm looking forward to people punching this episode in with Ed the Pagan. And I really hope that you come back on the show, Ed. I will be in touch with you. And for all the witching stuff, you'll probably get annoyed with me at some point, or maybe you won't. But, man, I'm just so excited to have someone of your caliber be gracious enough to have some, regular, average, everyday paranormal schlub like me, interview you. I'm just a regular guy doing this, because of my love of the paranormal, and I want people to be more comfortable talking about the paranormal. I want to be a part of that movement.
I'm a Cain Stevens fan, so go ahead out there.
Awesome.
And we're all ordinary guys at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's it. And so thank you. I appreciate it. I was in that spot, but I'm a Cain Stevens fan. I'm going to be looking forward to listening.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Ed. Yeah.
And blessed be.
Yes, absolutely. Blessed be to you too. And thank you for the interview, sir. And hopefully this won't be the end of our journey together. Thank you.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.